let's now go into, away from the central, let's go to the people polity.
Okay.
Let's go to the people being the state, the people being the ones at the center of it all.
That's right.
Now, there are so many young people who watch the beam, and they are very, very particular about politics at this time.
That's right.
How do we make sure that this year, as it comes into campaigns, as it comes into electioneering, how do we make sure that they are part of it? The voter apathy we've seen is not part of the things we see. We want to make sure that they are really part of it, to ensure that this nation is, like you said, everybody is brought into the fore, to make sure we all grow together. How does that play out?
Yeah, I think the Nigerian youth must seize the opportunity, to participate effectively in the political system. Because their voice not only need to be heard, actions need to be taken. And I think that to tell you that the system is responsive, when the youths were asking for age reduction, that is not even under this president.
Definitely.
But you see how Yaga moved, another civil society organization, youth group, moved that particular momentum and got a presidential assent, to age reduction in politics. That is how to mobilize, functionally mobilize youth energy, to bring about change, particularly incremental change in a system like ours. I think that the youths also need to look at what the government has done for the youth sector, and see how either that can be scaled up, because, for example, we have the Nigerian student loan scheme, where students can access loan on their own and perhaps see themselves through school with those loan systems. And I think that it is working sufficiently. There are several initiatives.
So beyond this initiative, I want us to go into how they can come right into, making sure they are part of the polity today, basically. That's what
we have a lot of youth-centered civil society organizations. The point now is that what are those youth organizations doing to mobilize youth group? Because it's not everything will live in the hand of government. What are religious bodies also doing, traditional institutions also doing, to ensure that the youth category of our populations are actively involved in our political system?
In the right manner.
In the right manner, that's the truth. Because if we say we don't want violence, we want to end violence, we want peace in our society, it's the same youth energy that is used for violence that we need to transform, to become agents of peace rather than agents of violence. So we need to begin to mobilize youth energy, from the community level, and also get the youths also to be involved in community development projects. But as I speak now, there is a lot of disconnect between the youths and even local communities, and disconnect between the youths, and even traditional institutions, and disconnect between the youth and even the state system.
Whose job is it to build this?
The job is different stakeholders. Government needs to do it at different levels, not only at the federal government level. The state government needs to be involved. Local government needs to be involved. Traditional institutions need to be involved. And of course, the religious organizations also needs to be involved. If you look at the youth energy, for example, in our religious cycle, those energies also need to be translated into the political and the social space for the good of the nation. Yes, for the good of the nation. Because we are seeing increasingly youths who are growing without knowing what environmental sanitation looks like. What some sense of discipline look like in terms of you need to dress fine, you need to walk well, you need to have some social habits, and all that. And we are seeing all that. So the National Association of Nigerian Students, and all the respective youth groups, must be involved in this clarion call, to reverse the ugly trend of society. We need to pull our youth energy from cultism, from 419 Yahoo,
all right.
And all the incidents, evil vices, that some of our youths have been targeted to, discourage them and sufficiently bring them into the arena of politics.
I want to quickly... I want you to join this into religious tolerance, because it's one of the major things. So merge it together. Where do we go as a nation in the line of peace when it comes to religion? Because the youths are the ones who will also, like you said, the energy. Let's see, how do you mesh that together?
No, I think that first and foremost, as an individual human being, you need a sufficient level of enlightenment that no one should be able to mobilize you to do what is not good. And I think that is where the place of individual youth comes to be. A couple of years ago, I was a youth, and I'm sure you were a youth too.
I'm still a youth.
So the point now is that, and even within that time that one was a youth, there were certain components, there are certain numbers of youths who derailed. Either one, they refused to go to school, or two, they went to school, decided to do vices, or became robbers, or became whatever thing they wanted to become. So, and that is why socialization is very proper, and mentorship also is very proper. We have what we call the National Action Plan on Youth, Peace and Security, which we develop along with the UN system and the Ministry of Youth. And I think that the current Minister of Youth, the Honorable Minister of Youth, is also coming up with a lot of initiatives with other partners that we're going to be working on, to leverage on to ensure that we are able to mobilize this youth energy. Because the same religious intolerance, I've mentioned here that youth can be agents of violence as well as agents of peace. So religious organizations also need to begin to use this youthful energy, in a much more functional and productive ways. I've mentioned this in a very strategic forum, that the kind of war that we are fighting in Nigeria, we don't seem to either appreciate or understand the level of that kind of war. We are actually at a state of war, ideological war, that if we don't counter it, degrade them, reduce them, and bring them to zero, we're likely going to be faced, if we are nonchalant about it, which is not what it is, but if we're nonchalant about it and ignorantly support this kind of banditry, insurgency, terrorism that we are seeing, coming from different regions into Nigeria, as if Nigeria is a fertile place for these things, if they succeed, we even have religion to practice, whether Christianity or Islam, in this country.
All right.
Yes, because, and I'll give you an example.
We're almost out of time.
At the heat of Boko Haram, when Boko Haram were making their swell from Maiduguri into some places, into Michika and Mubi in certain places, the first casualty for those places were the religious leaders as well as the traditional leaders. And that is why we need to mobilize our youth to become our frontiers, of functional society, of an understanding for a much more peaceful society. And we can only do that if we take very good advantage of some of the policies that are on ground, work with government in a more collaborative format, cooperative format, to ensure that Nigeria is sustained. And then we reverse collectively the ugly trend of violence that is here. And that is why...
Sadly, I can't have you go on because there's so much we would have talked, but I'm sure we're going to get you back and then we can say a lot more as regards how we can, pave the path for peace.